Hi, my name is Chris Burrows. I'm one of the owners of SES Research, and I wanted to go through things that you should be taking into consideration if you're gonna buy C60, if you're gonna maybe buy some olive oil, maybe mix it yourself, or maybe you're just buying some C60 and olive oil from a vendor that you haven't worked with before. So you want to go through some of those things that you need to be careful about, right? So first, maybe you know C60 is manufactured. There are a couple ways that you manufacture C60. The most common way that you manufacture C60 is with a carbon arc. And so basically you're taking two graphite rods and you're vaporizing the graphite so that frees up individual carbon particles, and those particles coalesce into the shape of a buckyball. That's the most abundant way. What happens from that process is you end up with a soot. That soot tends to have somewhere between 5 and 10% fullerenes. And the rest of it is amorphous carbon, so different types of carbon that are not fullerenes and are not known to be good for your health. And so you've got to separate the fullerenes and that amorphous carbon. The way that you separate those fullerenes and the amorphous carbon is you actually soak the whole thing. So the best way to imagine it is if you had, say, sugar and water together and you wanted to separate the two. You would put water, right, and then the sugar would dissolve in the water, and then you would filter it, and all the sand would stay on top of the filter, and all the sugar would go through in solution, and then you would boil off the water, and that powder that's left over would be your sugar. So fullerenes and amorphous carbon are the same. You soak them. You actually have to soak them in some pretty known toxic chemicals like toluene, hexane, benzene. All of those will dissolve fullerenes. Actually, so will olive oil. But you have to dissolve those in toluene. We typically use toluene. And again, the fullerenes will dissolve into the toluene like the sugar did in the water. You filter it, and you end up with a cake of amorphous carbon on the top. That's the sand. And then which comes through the filter is your fullerenes in solution. So now you boil off that solution. You boil off that toluene. You collect it so you can recycle it, of course. And then the black powder that you have left over is fullerenes. That black powder is actually typically about 70% C60, 30% C70. And so you also want to further refine that. There's a number of ways to do that. Chromatography is one of the best ways, and that's the way that we use. And that's just a process of separating those two. So it's very important if you're going to purchase C60 that you're working with a company that you trust, that you know and trust, and that you're working with a company who you know is testing their product. In fact, if you've never worked with them before and you don't have 100% confidence in them, because those chemicals are so toxic, I really would want to you should be doing your own testing, right? So does that particular C60 have any residual solvents? Because that's the thing to be most concerned about. Also the ratio, if you're not getting anything pure, so if you're getting some 95% purity, and if you don't have the equipment to test that purity and you don't trust that company 100%, then you probably should, it's just safer to go with a company that you trust to deliver the right kind of purity. Next is olive oil. So olive oil, there's actually a 60-minute special on olive oil. There's a lot of kind of turmoil in that industry. There's talks of the mafia being involved. The most popular olive oil here in the United States is the Bertolli. And that particular olive oil has a number of lawsuits and fraud going against it. We've actually sourced our best olive oil, so that's for our soon-to-becoming My Vital C product, and our fine grade is actually this. It's organic calamati. It's in a particular region of Greece, and it's kind of like a single malt Scotch. It's one orchard of olives, and so that one all gets cold pressed extra virgin olive oil. By the way, extra virgin olive oil means it's cold pressed, so that's just a sample of that bottle. And so really this is the important part. One of the things that I'd like to point out at this point, if you look at the original BATI 2012 study, there were 3 groups, right? One of them was given water, that's the control group. Another one was given olive oil, and then the third was given olive oil with C60. That second group actually lived 30% longer than the control group, which if that C60 didn't exist in that particular study, that would be the single longest longevity experiment on mammals known to man. right? So it's only eclipsed by C60 with olive oil at a 90% extension of life. So whatever olive oil you currently take, you should be taking more olive oil. It's one of the reasons that we only sell C60 and olive oil. It's the only thing that's documented and researched. It had phenomenal results in that particular study. And then obviously olive oil with C60 was shown to nearly double the lifespan of test subjects. So that's all pretty important. And then finally, we want to talk a little bit about if you're going to mix C60 with olive oil or any kind of oil. So it's very quick and easy if you sonicate it, and you absolutely should not sonicate it. In fact, you shouldn't sonicate olive oil or vegetable oils in general because they are known to go rancid at high temperatures. And you may put it on for like 5 minutes and think, oh, this is no big deal. The temperature hasn't actually raised very much. The reality is the way that sonication units work, they're creating sound waves that are bombarding the fluid from all different directions, or the material from all different directions, and you get peaks of those sound waves that can get very nanoscale areas of temperatures, and I've heard this as high as the sun, but let's just say extremely high temperatures. And so you may not be raising the temperature of the entire olive oil batch to a point that it's going to go rancid, but you are doing that in little nanoscale, microscale, probably not even nanoscale, but microscale areas within that batch. And so that's going to turn that product rancid. We don't know how it's interacting with the C60 at those high temperatures, so you definitely do not want to sonicate. You definitely want to mix it. We mix it according to the Bati study. It's 2 weeks. You tend to get, after you've put C60 in olive oil for 2 weeks and had it mix, you tend to get a saturation of about 0.8 milligrams per milliliter. I know there's some companies out there are saying, oh, we've got 1.6 and that's double. I've heard of, and I haven't researched it, but I've heard of there's some olive oil. Actually, I was on a video with Dustin Nemos, and he talked about, he had heard of an olive oil where you could actually it could dissolve more C60. I'm not aware of it. In fact, I reached out to him. We want to get some of that and do a little bit of testing. But in general, if they're saying more than 0.8 milligrams per milliliter, it's unsubstantiated. And we've worked with a lot of olive oils to be sure. Also, when you're mixing, there is the possibility that you could oxidize, so you want to make sure that you're mixing it in an environment that is not exposed to oxygen. We actually use a nitrogen into purge for ours to make sure that we're not getting any oxygen exposure while we're mixing. It is mixing for 2 full weeks. It's very important that you do that. Heating can be a concern. Certainly we just talked about sonication and the heating that can occur there. Just know that if you heat it too hot, you can actually cause a lot of damage to it. Now I just said heating, and that brings me to a question that we get pretty regularly. We get 2 questions depending on the season. One is we ship during in the winter and it gets cold and olive oil will coagulate, right? And so they're concerned, customers are concerned, is this a problem? No, just let it get back to room temperature. It'll all go back into liquid form and you'll be just fine. So there's absolutely no problem there. The other concern is when it's hot outside, if your product is sitting outside for some time, or it's in the trucks, or it's being shipped via airplane, so it's in the airplane, that is not a problem. We just need to treat it like typical olive oil. A typical olive oil has a shelf life of 3 years. On all of our products, we've got dates when they're recommended to be used before, and we always use 1 year. We just like to be conservative. That's our nature. We want to be on the right side of making sure that the product's good. But a typical olive oil lasts 3 years. There's a lot of belief that because of C60's ability to absorb oxygens, right? So a free radical absorber and an antioxidant, that it actually extends the life of the olive oil beyond the 3 years that it already has. And so typically the products that you're going to get from us are fine grade, original grade, or My Vital C. They're going to be good for much longer than 3 years, but we just put a 1 year best used by date on it. So if it's shipped in the summer, just like olive oil, you don't want to store it on your patio. You don't want to open it and leave it out. Just treat it like a regular olive oil. So if it sits in the sun for a day or two because it's the package got delivered, that's not going to be a problem, especially because that's still sealed. Once you get it in, once you open it, just treat it like a regular olive oil. You don't have to refrigerate it. I keep my olive oil, my regular olive oil, in the pantry. And then the same thing with the olive oil with C60 in it. That's really it for now. Be careful. A lot of things are happening in the market. I can tell you we did look for C60 manufacturers around the world to understand what the products are and what the quality of the products are. We actually ended up growing the market of C60 and olive oil substantially, so we pulled our C60 off of the market. Some of you may be aware of that. We weren't bought by NASA. I know that's a rumor out there. Not necessarily that we were, but one of the largest manufacturers was bought out by NASA. We are the largest manufacturer and distributor of C60. We sell to all the large vendors and most of the small vendors. Be careful. We're aware of at least one company that bought our product, so 99.95% pure C60 early on, and then hasn't bought it since. So but they're still in the market. So there's two potentials, right? They didn't buy that much. So this first potential is not likely that they purchased it and they kept that on the label, and then now they're buying a lesser grade, or they're going somewhere overseas and getting a grade and still saying that they're using our original product. So just be careful. If you have any questions about any other vendor out there, go ahead and give us a call. You can always call us. Our phone number is 713-686-9662. Like I said, we were testing different vendors of C60 around the world. We found just that the C60 around the planet is not a quality of C60 that you would want to put in anything that you'd put in your body. I know we've got some vendors who reached out to us specifically with companies in China. We've tested those materials. At least the materials that we've tested just don't cut the mustard, if you will. So be careful out there. We want you to use the product. We want you to love the product. There are good vendors out there. We work with them. We sell them the C60. So we really like them to be out there spreading the word of C60. It seems to be providing lots of benefits to a lot of people. By the way, the FDA has not evaluated these statements, and they have also not. This product is not intended to diagnose or treat any diseases, and we are getting amazing testimonials. Thank you guys for kind of sending in testimonials. If you've got your own testimonial, we may highlight it on a video coming soon. We really appreciate you. Make sure you subscribe and follow, and we'll see you soon.